My name is Mara Sylvan, and I am 33 years old, and I live on the edge of the sea in Seabrook Ridge Newcrest, where the houses sit like shells along the shore, and the morning fog lifts slowly over the water. And I tell myself I am the sort of person who can keep a steady life even when the weather outside keeps changing. And I run a small design studio that makes quiet little outdoor spaces for the town. And I think I am someone who knows how to read people and keep promises, but my life shifts. When the man I am with starts talking about family plans, and I notice a ripple in the air, the kind that shows up before a storm, and that ripple shows up when he tells me that his brother will visit for 1 week, and his cousin for another week, and that they cannot come together because they do not get along, which at first seems plausible, and I listen and I smile and I am polite, and I do not press because I am in love, or at least I am in need of company, and a routine that feels warm and steady. But the more I listen, the more I feel a strange pull in my stomach, like a door just opened a crack, and light is slipping through, and I tell myself to breathe, and I tell myself to trust, and I pretend that this is just the kind of silly thing that can be chalked up to stress. And the heat of July in a small town where all eyes know your name, and all gossip travels quicker than the tide. And I, the person who loves calm and order, begin to notice little things that do not add up, and the first thing that does not add up is the lie as small as a bead on a bracelet, and the second is the way he changes the subject when I dare to ask questions, and the third is how a plan seems to unfold like a map drawn in ink that I cannot quite read. But I still feel the urge to follow, and that is how I begin to suspect that something more dangerous is riding at the edge of the shoreline where I live, and I tell myself to wait and see, because maybe it is only a misunderstanding about family and travel, and who will stay where and with whom. And for how long, and maybe I am just noticing details I am not supposed to notice. The trouble comes into fuller light when a name steps into my mind, and then into my messages, and the name is Nova, and Nova is the cousin who was supposed to visit from a nearby island, and Nova does not know me at all. But I do not need to know Nova to know what I am about to find, and I do not even need to hear a word from Nova, because the truth arrives in a bundle of small hints that pile up like shells on the shore after a storm, and I cannot deny them any longer, and I send a brief message to Nova because I cannot pretend that I am not curious, and she writes back with a tone that makes my skin crawl, and she says that she is indeed planning to move with him to America, and she says she has never been in a real relationship before, and that she is not worried about staying for love, but about staying for a green card. And she uses the phrase, "I will get my stuff and go," and I sit with that sentence, and I hear the rhythm of it, and I realize that the promise of a family visit was nothing more than a cover for a plan to leave together, and I feel that old heat in my chest that comes with betrayal, and I realize that I have become a character in a story I did not write, and I feel the ground shift under my feet, and I know I must face what is in front of me even if my hands tremble, and even if my heart wants to pretend I have no part in this. I begin to gather truth the way I gather threads for a new shirt, the way I keep notes for a project that will take months to complete. But in this case, the project is my own life. And the thread I pull first is his history, and the thread I pull second is her motive, and the thread I pull third is the way the town will see this if I do not tell them. And I learn that he has a habit of speaking in half-truths and a habit of bending promises to fit what he thinks will keep him comfortable, and I learn that Nova the cousin has never had a real relationship before, which makes the green card plan feel more like a harvest of vulnerability than a plan of risk. And I learn that the island world they come from is small and tight and suspicious of outsiders. And I learn that if I do not push back, the town will swallow the truth, and I am not ready to vanish into the background again. I am not ready to be the quiet girl who saw nothing and said nothing, and I begin to fear that my own life is about to be rewritten by someone else's dream of a future I cannot share or control, and I feel a cold wind in my chest as I decide that I will not let this become a story about me that ends with me being used or broken. So I set a plan in motion that is careful and deliberate, and not cruel but strong and honest. And it begins with the most painful thing I can do, which is to pull away from him and to tell him I can no longer pretend. The days that follow bring a weight that settles on my shoulders like a heavy coat, and I am extra kind and extra distant at the same time. And I watch him pivot between two worlds, the one where he pretends to be a caring partner, a good man who would never dream of hurting me, and the other where he chases a faster life, a life that includes a lover who speaks of travel and escape, and a future that glitters with the chance to leave everything behind, and I watch as he chemistries the lie, and I watch him try to select what will keep him most comfortable, and I realize I am inside a story where the hero leaves the town or the town leaves the hero, and I cannot tell which is which until the day I visit the town market and hear the rumor in a whisper about these two people who have arrived in town and who want to leave town, and I hear their names spoken together, as if they were twins who should not be mistaken or separated, and I feel the familiar ache that comes when you hear something that is almost truth and cannot bear to face it alone, and I must decide whether to confront this with quiet patience or to blow the whole thing up, and I choose the latter because I am a designer, and I know how a single bold move can change a space. So, I decide to stage a moment I hope will expose the truth without hurting anyone who does not deserve hurt. I arrange a community event at the town hall, and I invite the people who know the real stories, and I invite him and Nova to attend as if it is a simple family gathering. And I also invite someone who can help me tell the truth in a way that cannot be ignored, and that is a photographer who is known for honest pictures and a letter from a local immigration lawyer who can speak plainly about the risks and realities of a green card dream. The plan is to present a picture of what is really happening in Seabrook Ridge Newcrest, and to show that the future a person might chase is not worth stealing someone else's life for, and I tell myself to be careful to do no real harm, but to allow the truth to do the work that fear has prevented us from doing. The town hall is a slice of life, and it feels strange to stand in front of the room and speak to people I have known since I was a child, but I push through, and I tell the room that I have learned that promises are fragile, and that sometimes what looks like a harmless visit is really a path to a new life, for a person who has never learned how to share life with another. And I let Nova speak for herself when she steps up to the microphone, and the words come out in a way I did not expect. She says that she has never had a real relationship before, and that she is curious about love and about belonging, and that she thought a move to America would solve her loneliness, and that she did not realize how much pain she would cause, and it is not a villain's speech, and it is not a complete confession, but it is enough to show that there is not simply good and evil here, but a tangled knot of need and fear and longing. And that is when the room turns, and I see him as he tries to rescue his plan by blaming everyone else, and I see him slide from the seat to the front of the room with an excuse on his lips that sounds like a defense of his own character. But it lands on me like a stone, and I feel all the air leave me. And I have the choice to press the button that will ruin both of them, or to let the truth stand. And I realize that to press the button is not the same as to ruin a life, but it can save my own life and my own sense of self. I choose the harder path, which is to tell the truth, without lighting a fuse that could burn someone else. I reveal the letters I have kept and the conversations I have saved, and the photos I took from the night I stood by the window as I listened to a plan unfold through a screen door. And I show the room full of people the truth about why Nova came here, and why the promises of a new life can be such a dangerous lure when there is a man who says he loves you, but only in a way that makes a future possible for him, and not for everyone involved, and there is a hush in the hall, and then a ripple of questions, and wave of relief and some sadness, and in the end, the room decides that the best thing to do is to end the relationship between me and him for good, and to give Nova a chance to think carefully about her actions, and to think about the path she will choose next. And I do not pretend this heals every wound, but it stops the bleeding in a place I never wanted to bleed, and it gives me back some of the air I lost. The night after the town hall, I stand on the deck and look at the sea and the skyline of Seabrook Ridge Newcrest, and I feel the weight shift in me, as if a door has closed and another door has opened. And I realize that my life will move forward without him, and without the echo of the lie that used to sit between us. And I whisper to the wind that I am ready to be the author of my own days again. And I feel a surprising calm that comes with this decision, even though I know I will not wake up tomorrow with the same certainty, and I am not sure what the next chapter will look like. I only know that I am free enough to decide it. And I begin to make it with small steps like cleaning up the studio, and taking on new clients who value my careful eye, and spending Sunday mornings at the shore with a notebook and a pen, and a plan to build things that last and not to chase someone else's dream. I tell myself that the hard thing right now is not to win back a relationship, but to win back myself, and the town gives me new normal, and in that new normal I meet someone who is not looking for a shortcut or a dream they do not deserve, but someone who wants to help me grow, and who reads the same quiet life into a future I can believe in, And I realize that the best revenge is simply a life well lived. And the best victory is peace after a storm. And so I lean into the future, and I let the old tides go, and I let myself become a stronger version of the person I was meant to be, and I tell myself that I am not the kind of person who will pretend to be small again. I am the kind of person who will shape the sea to make room for my own shoreline. And as I do the last thing I did not expect happens, I find a letter tucked in the back of a file on my desk. It is from a writer who lives in the next town, and it speaks of stories about people who survive heartbreak by turning it into art. And it says that Mara Sylvan sounds like a woman who would write a beautiful future if she would let herself. And I read the line again and again, and I feel a lightness I have not felt in a long time, and I know my life will keep changing, and I know I will keep choosing what is true rather than what is easy. And I know that the world in Seabrook Ridge Newcrest will keep being complicated and kind. And I will keep finding a way to keep faith with myself even when the sea is rough. And even when the shore looks different tomorrow, because the real ending is not a single triumph, but a steady choosing of the next brave thing, and I am ready for the next brave thing and the next, and I believe that someday I will tell this story to someone else in a room, and I will say I learned that love is not something you grab at a moment, but something you earn through countless small, honest acts of care, and that sometimes the best revenge is not to destroy a life, but to save your own, and I know that is true because I am Mara Sylvan, and I have learned to love the truth again, and I have learned to love myself again, and I have learned to choose a future where my life matters for myself, and for the people I will help with my work, and for the town that watched me learn to rise, and the tide goes out, and the tide comes back in, and I am still here, and I am still moving forward, and I am still Mara, and that is enough for now.